Hey, how's it going, everyone? Welcome to Finance with Abram. In this video, I'm giving you the top 10 savings accounts ranked by APY annual percentage yield for November 2025. And there's definitely been some movement in this list since the last time I done this video for September 2025. And before we get into the top 10 list, I'm going to show you a couple of interesting graphs as well as go over some honorable mentions, well-known banks and financial institutions that have high nice yield savings accounts. However, the rates aren't high enough to make it into the top 10 list. However, there are some promotions going on with some of these banks and financial institutions that will give a boost to their high yield savings accounts for a certain amount of months for new customers. And I'm going to show you and tell you the details about that. Now, let me get into some of these interesting graphs that I found online. The first graph here is showing you how much money you can earn over 6 months with $5,000 in a high yield savings account. Because sometimes you have people out there to go, oh, I only have a few thousand. It doesn't matter if I'm making any, 1, 2, 3% or anything on this money. It's just $2,000, $3,000, $5,000. No, having a high yield savings account is still a great account to have, even with a few $1,000s in your savings or emergency fund. As you see right here on the graph, $5,000 broken down by how much interest you would earn on different APYs. You see, for 3% APY, you can earn $74 over that course of 6 months. Then 4% APY, $99. 5% APY, $124. Now, of course, APYs are variable, so they're subject to change. As you'll definitely notice in this video, many of them have changed. And so the APY won't stay the same typically for 6 months, especially in this environment that we're in. I mean, there are some economic environments where an APY on a savings account can stay steady for several months. However, right now with the Fed cutting rates, and just recently happened, 25 basis point cut, typically when that happens, of course, rates and yields on deposit accounts like high yield savings accounts, in CDs and regular savings accounts will go down. And I made a video about the correlation and connection between the Fed funds rate and deposit accounts like savings accounts and CD accounts, as you see it right there on the screen. I'll leave a link to that video down in the description. Now, also, I want to show you another interesting graph that is telling you and showing you that you can beat inflation with a nice high yield savings account. As you see right here on this graph from July 2015 through September 2025, the blue line right there is CPI, Consumer Price Index. So that's basically like inflation. And you see how it jumped and spiked right there, and it kind of chilled out in some areas right now. It's kind of bouncing up and down. However, check out that green/lime line right there. That is a top high yield savings yield. And you see there has been moments where it's definitely been lower than inflation, and it's hard to beat inflation sometimes with a savings account. Typically, the best way to beat inflation is going to be with investing in the stock market if it's doing well, if you got great investments. But there are times, as you see on the chart, where even a high yield savings account can beat inflation. And now one of those regular savings accounts at traditional banks, with a 0.1% and 0.5%, 0.08%, whatever, the national average, is like 0.52%. That's not beating inflation at all. But right now you can beat reported inflation with a high yield savings account. So I thought that's very interesting and something I wanted to show you on this video. Now let's get into the honorable mentions for this video here. First up, we have the Capital One 360 Performance Savings Account. Last time I done this video for September 2025, this account was at 3.50% APY. However, like many other accounts that you'll see in this video, it has since lowered its APY down to 3.40%. There's no initial minimum deposit required for this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $30,000 in this Capital One 360 Performance Savings Account at 3.40% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $30,000 would turn into about $30,083.50. So you would have earned about $83.50 after 1 month for just letting $30,000 sit in this account at 3.40%. Now, this Capital One high yield savings account is a great account. I've used it before personally, didn't have any negative issues with it. Transfers were fine. Checking out my balance and the interest in the app was fine. Online transfers, didn't have any issues with that. So very nice account here with Capital One, their savings account. Not the highest of APYs, but still a high yield right there. But let's get into some more honorable mentions here. Next up, we have the Ally savings account. Previously, this account was at 3.50% a couple of months ago. However, it's since been lowered down to that 3.40%. There's no initial minimum deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. So calculation example for this one: if you had $30,000 in this Ally savings account at 3.40% APY, after 1 month, that $30,000 would turn into about $30,083.61. Now let's get into some more honorable mentions here. Next up, we have the Marcus by Goldman Sachs online savings account at 3.65% APY. Now the yield on this savings account has stayed steady for the past couple of months. No change in it, which is kind of rare as you'll see continuing in this video, and as you've already seen with the first two accounts. So with the Marcus by Goldman Sachs online savings account, there's no minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $30,000 in this Marcus by Goldman Sachs savings account at 3.65% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $30,000 would equal about $30,089.88. So total interest earned about $89.88 after that month. And the next honorable mention we have here is the SoFi high yield savings account at 3.80% APY. There's no initial minimum deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Now, SoFi Plus is required for that APY at 3.80%. Easy way to get SoFi Plus is to have a regular direct deposit going into their account. Monthly of a direct deposit would make you a SoFi Plus member, or you can pay $10 a month to become a SoFi Plus member. I've used SoFi before, didn't have any issues with this account. Great app, great account, transfers very nice and smooth. Now, SoFi has some of the fastest transfers that I've experienced with banks and financial institutions. So I've had a great experience with SoFi, and also they have FDIC insurance up to $3 million. Now, as you see on the screen, there's another APY up there, 4.50%. Yes, SoFi has a special promotion going on. Let me show you and tell you about it. So they have this going on for people that open up a SoFi savings account by January 31st, 2026, because you will get that 0.70% APY boost on your savings account for 6 months. And that's no matter where the APY goes for their, standard rate. Right now it's 3.80%. However, if it drops down next month to 3.70% or 3.50%, you're still going to have that boost of 0.70%. So you can just add that on top of wherever the APY is at currently for the SoFi savings account. And so the next step to obtain that boost is that you become a SoFi Plus member within 60 days. And as I stated, to become a SoFi Plus member, you either need to set up an eligible direct deposit, and it doesn't matter if it goes into the checking account or savings account, either one that you have it going into will give you SoFi Plus, or pay the $10 a month every 30 days for the subscription to SoFi Plus. And it doesn't matter if it goes into the checking account or savings account, either one that you have it going into will give you SoFi Plus. Very easy, simple process. And that 4.50% APY is very nice. As you'll see in the ranking list of this video, that would make this one of the top high yield savings accounts. So I wanted to definitely show you and tell you about that. But now I recently did a video, as you see right down the screen, and I'll link it in the description, about how you can earn up to $325 when opening a SoFi savings and checking account. And if you want to know more about that, check out that video. I have a link to it in the description. Now, calculation example for this one, we're going to use that special promotion APY of 4.50%. So let's say you had $30,000 in this SoFi savings account at 4.50% with the interest compounding monthly. After 1 month, that $30,000 would turn into about $30,110. So after a month, you would earn about $110 of interest on that $30,000. Now let's get into another honorable mention here. It's going to be the Wealthfront Cash account. Previously, this account was at 4% APY a couple of months ago. However, it's since been lowered down to 3.75%. There's a $1 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. And with Wealthfront, you can have up to $8 million of FDIC insurance. Now, these banks and financial institutions that give you the opportunity to have higher FDIC insurance than the standard $250,000 amount, how they're able to do that basically is that they spread your funds in the account to different program banks. So banks that they have a relationship with, they're not opening up an account on your name at the other financial institutions or anything like that. They're just using that as a way to increase the FDIC insurance and of course have more funds with their financial institution. As you may see on the screen here, Wealthfront has a promotion going on as well with their cash account. So you can actually earn an APY of 4.40%. Their boost is also 0.65%. So that 3.75% APY they currently have would be boosted up to 4.40% for 3 months when you open and fund the cash account. So you have to be a new customer to Wealthfront, open your account and fund it with at least $1, and then you can get that boost of 0.65% for 3 months. And now currently did not notice a date that you must sign up by to attain this boost. However, it is a limited time promotion. And now calculation example for this Wealthfront cash account, if you had $30,000 in this Wealthfront cash account at that promotion of 4.40% with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $30,000 would turn into about $30,107.75. And if you want to know more about the the Wealthfront Cash account, I have a overview video of it on my channel, link in the description. Now let's move on to another honorable mention here. It's going to be the CIT Bank Platinum Savings account. A couple of months ago, this account was at 4% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 3.85% APY. There's a $100 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and that 3.85% APY is for balances of at least $5,000 or more. Now, if your balance is under $5,000, then your APY on the Platinum Savings account is only going to be 0.25%. However, if you really like CIT Bank and you want to earn a high yield with them, but you don't have $5,000, you should consider checking out the CIT Bank Savings Connect account because it currently has an APY of 3.75%, so only 0.10% lower. Now, they also have a $100 minimum initial deposit requirement for that account as well. However, that 3.75% is on all balance amounts. So you can have $2,000, $3,000, $4,999 in the account and still earn a high yield of that 3.75%. Now, with both of these accounts, the CIT Bank, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $30,000 in the CIT Bank Platinum Savings account at 3.85% with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $30,000 would turn into about $30,094.64. If you want to know more about the CIT Bank Platinum Savings account, I have an in-depth review and overview video of it on my channel, link in the description. And another honorable mention I want to show you here is the Popular Direct Online Savings account. A couple of months ago, this account was at 4.10% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 4.05% APY. There's a minimum $100 initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $30,000 in the Popular Direct Online Savings account at 4.05% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, you would earn about $99.41 of interest on that $30,000. And now those are the honorable mentions there. Some well-known banks and financial institutions with nice high yields, but just not high enough to get in the top 10 list, excluding those promotions that are going on. But of course, those are limited time promotions that are available to new accounts. Now let's get into the top 10 list here. First, starting at number 10 with the Western Alliance Bank High Yield Savings Premier account. A couple of months ago, this account was at 4.3% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 4.10% APY. There's a $500 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $30,000 in this Western Alliance High Yield Savings account at 4.10% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $30,000 would turn into about $30,100.50. So total interest earned on that $30,000 at 4.1% APY would be about $100.50. At number 9 is the Eagle Bank High Yield Savings account. A couple of months ago, this account was all the way up at 4.40%. However, it's since been lowered down to 4.15%. There's a minimum opening deposit requirement of $1,000 to open this account. And now to earn that yield, that's for balances between $0 to $500,000. After you cross over $500,000, the APY is only 0.01%. And with this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $30,000 in the Eagle Bank High Yield Savings account at 4.15% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, you would earn about $101.92 on that $30,000 in this account. Now at number 8, we have a tie. First up here is the Open Bank High Yield Savings account. This account was at 4.20% a couple of months ago and is still holding steady there. There's a $500 minimum initial deposit requirement to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, if you had $30,000 in this Open Bank High Yield Savings account at 4.20% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $30,000 would turn into about $30,102.75. Also tied at number 8 is the Lending Club Level Up Savings account, holding steady at 4.20% APY. There's no minimum initial deposit required to open this account, but you must have at least $250 deposited into this account per month to obtain that APY of 4.20%. If you miss a month, then the APY will be at 3.20%. However, if you miss a month, you can get it back up to that 4.20% by having a deposit go into the account the next month of at least $250. With this account, the interest is compounded and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one, same as the previous accounts. If you had $30,000 in the Lending Club Level Up Savings account at 4.2% APY with the interest compounded compounding monthly. After 1 month, you would earn about $102.75 on $30,000 in this account. Also tied at number 8 is the Bread Financial High Yield Savings Account. Previously, this account was at 4.25%. However, it's since been lowered down to 4.20%. There's a $100 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $30,000 in this Bread Financial High Yield Savings Account at 4.2% APY, with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $30,000 would turn into about $30,102.92. To number 7 on the list, we have another tie. First up here is the Ivy Bank High Yield Savings Account, holding steady at 4.25% APY. It was at that APY a couple of months ago and is still currently sitting there, which is nice to see an APY not go down. There's a $2,500 initial deposit required to open this account, and a balance must be at least $2,500 to earn that APY of 4.25%. And there's a $1 million maximum balance allowed. The APY would only be 0.05% if your balance is under $2,500. With this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $30,000 in the Ivy Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.25% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $30,000 would turn into about $30,104.17. If you want to know more about the Ivy Bank High Yield Savings Account, I have a review video of it on my channel, link in the description. Also tied at number 7 is the Poppy Bank Premier Savings Account at 4.25% APY. This account had the same APY a couple of months ago, so it's holding steady as well. There's a minimum balance of at least $1,000 that must be maintained in this account to earn that 4.25% APY. And with this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. And in a fine print I noticed about this account is that they state that electronic statements must be activated to avoid the monthly $5 paper statement fee. Calculation example for this account: if you had $30,000 in the Poppy Bank Premier Savings at 4.25% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, you would earn about $104.17 of interest on that $30,000 sitting in the account. And at number 6, we have another tie. First up here is the Total Bank Money Market Deposit Account. A couple of months ago, this account was at 4.41% APY. However, it's since been lowered down to 4.26%. There's a $25,000 minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and you must have at least $2,500 in the account to earn that APY of 4.26%. And they have an account maximum of $1 million for this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Now, this is a money market account, but it's very similar to a high yield savings account, so I decided to put it on the list for those interested in Total Bank, so they know they basically have a high yield savings account with a yield that's currently one of the highest that you can earn. And now, calculation example for this one: if you had $30,000 in this Total Bank Money Market Deposit Account at 4.26% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $30,000 would turn into about $30,104.43. For 5, we have the New Tech Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.35% APY. Previously, this account had the same APY of 4.35% a couple of months ago and is still holding steady at that yield. There's no minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Calculation example for this one: if you had $30,000 in this New Tech Bank High Yield Savings Account at 4.35% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $30,000 would turn into about $30,106.68. And at number 4, we have the Presidential Bank Advantage Savings Account at 4.50% APY. There's a $5,000 initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded and credited monthly. To qualify for that higher rate of 4.50%, you must also have an open Advantage checking account with Presidential Bank. And with this account, you can have up to $5 million in FDIC insurance. Calculation example for this one: if you had $30,000 in the Presidential Bank Advantage Savings Account at 4.5% APY with the interest compounding monthly, after 1 month, that $30,000 would end up turning into about $30,110.25. And at number 3 is the Axos Bank Axos One Savings Account. Previously, a couple of months ago, this account was at 4.46%. However, since then, the yield on this account has actually been increased to 4.51%. Yeah, only 0.05%, but an increase is an increase, something that's very rare to see in this economic environment we're in with deposit accounts. And there's no minimal initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. Now, a stipulation for this account to earn that 4.51% APY is that you must have an Axos One checking account and meet one of the requirements to earn that APY. If you don't, the standard APY is 1%. Now let me show you and tell you about those stipulations. As you see on the screen right here, the APY for the savings account is 4.51% and the APY for the checking account is 0.51%. However, you must meet one of the following requirements with your open Axos One checking account in order to earn that higher yield of 4.51% in your Axos One savings account. So option one is that you must receive at least $1,500 in total monthly qualifying direct deposits and maintain an average daily balance of more than $1,500 in your Axos One checking account. Option number two is that you must receive at least $5,000 in total monthly qualifying deposits and maintain an average daily balance of more than $5,000. So the option you choose would depend on how much of an average daily balance you want to have in the account, as well as how you're going to meet the deposit amounts. Would you rather have $1,500 in monthly qualifying direct deposits total, or a total of $5,000 in qualifying deposits? And of course, that's for just regular deposits, not for specifically direct deposits. But of course, direct deposits can count towards that. So one of those requirements is what you must meet in order to obtain that 4.51% APY in the Axos One savings account. If you had $30,000 in the Axos One savings account at 4.51% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, you would earn about $110.70 of interest on that $30,000 sitting in this account at 4.51% APY. And at number two, we have the Pi Bank online savings account at 4.60% APY. Now the APY on this account has held steady for the past couple of months. There's no minimal initial deposit required to open this account. And for this account, the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly on the 15th. Now, something I noticed about this account that kind of gives it a red flag for me personally, and it may for you, and I want to show you and tell you about this in case you're interested in it, and you may still be interested in it after this, but I definitely want to show and tell you about this. As you see right there on the fine print of the screen, they state that Pi Bank Savings does not generate or accept ACH transfers, including micro deposits. To fund your Pi Bank savings account, you can transfer money using Plaid or wire transfers. Outgoing transfers can only be made through a wire transfer. While Pi Bank does not charge fees for wire transfers, your bank may apply fees for both incoming and outgoing wire transfers, meaning your external bank, the other bank that you're using. And they also state that additionally, Pi Bank Savings does not support payments through Bill Pay or Zelle. So some of the things that really stick out for me in this fine print is that they do not generate or accept ACH transfers. That is one of the main ways to receive and send transfers externally to other banks. You know, for you to receive transfers from other banks and to send money from this account to other banks, or ACH transfers, automated clearinghouse. That's a typical external transfer. For some people with a savings account, they're not trying to move money around too much, so these stipulations may not matter to them. So I didn't want to exclude it from the list because of this, but I definitely want to tell you about this. And then they also state that to fund this account, you must transfer money using Plaid or wire transfers. Plaid is like a third-party service where you enter your bank account information for your other bank that you have, you know, whether it be Capital One or Chase or Bank of America, SoFi. You have to enter in your credentials, you know, your login credentials, your name and password through Plaid, that third-party service. And then it usually has some kind of verification process, you know, sends a code to your phone number or something like that. And then you verify it and so forth. And then you have your account linked with Plaid. And then you could transfer money from your external account to this Pi Bank account through Plaid. So there's another, you know, company involved in that transaction. So for some people, they use Plaid, no issues. And I know some people, they see Plaid and they don't want to have anything to do with it. They don't want to log into their bank through Plaid or anything like that. So this is a concerning factor that may, you know, put some people off as far as having an account with Pi Bank. Now, calculations for this one, if you had $30,000 in this Pi Bank online savings account at 4.6% APY with the interest compounding daily, after 1 month, that $30,000 would turn into about $30,112.70. And now at number 1 on the list, we have the Varo High Yield Savings Account at 5% APY. There's no minimum initial deposit required to open this account, and the interest is compounded daily and credited monthly. And now there are some stipulations for this account as well, so let me show and tell you about that. The 5% APY is for balances of up to $5,000 once the requirements are met. The APY will then be 2.50% for the rest of your balance that's over $5,000. And if you don't meet the requirements at all, your APY is going to be 2.5% on your entire balance. Now, let me show and tell you about the requirements here. So how to earn that 5% APY on up to $5,000. Now, step 1 for this is that you must open a Varo bank account and a Varo savings account. Then step number 2 is that you must receive direct deposits of at least $1,000 total by the end of each month. And then step number 3 is that you must make sure your accounts aren't negative at the end of each month. So if you follow those requirements, then you could earn 5% APY on your balance up to $5,000. And then everything after that $5,000 would have an APY of 2.5%. Now, something I noticed in the fine print for this account that was concerning to me personally is that they state that money can't be transferred from your Varo savings account to an external account. A savings transfer will need to be completed to transfer from your Varo bank account. So, with this account right here, you have to have that other account with Varo, the bank account, which is, I guess, kind of like a checking account, so to speak. So you must basically transfer money from your Varo savings account to that other Varo bank account. Then you can transfer it externally out to another bank elsewhere. So like another little step, another little loop, something you must jump through to just transfer money from your savings account with this account right here at Varo Bank. So that seemed kind of odd to me. I've used several high yield savings accounts and regular traditional savings accounts, and I've never had to do anything like that I know of. I mean, maybe years ago, I can't even think of anything recently or even years ago where I've had to transfer money from my savings account at a financial institution to another account at that same financial institution, and then be able to transfer it to an external financial institution. So just something kind of odd there. Now, I know the purpose of a savings account, of course, is to keep money, sitting there earning interest. For a high yield savings account, of course, that's even better than a traditional savings account. However, it's just, I like to be able to still access my money in a high yield savings account without jumping through another loop or another extra additional step or something like that. For some people, that fine print right there I just told you about may not be an issue with them. It's just like, okay, whatever. For some people, that may be kind of like, it's kind of odd. And of course, the 5% up to $5,000 could be an issue with several people as well. However, 5% APY is number 1 on the list as the highest APY you can earn on a high yield savings account. So Varo is number 1 again for my top 10 savings accounts ranked by APY. And now on this next screen right here, I want to show you some of the things that all of these accounts have in common. All of these accounts are FDIC insured up to that standard amount of $250,000. Of course, some of the accounts, like I stated, have higher FDIC insurance available, whether it be 2 million, 3 million, 8 million. I told you about those specific accounts that do have that. However, all of these accounts in general on the honorable mentions, as well as the top 10 list, all of them are FDIC insured. Also, none of these accounts have monthly maintenance fees. Now, there are a couple of accounts that did state, they will charge a fee if you have paper statements. However, you can easily opt out of those and then have no kind of monthly fee associated with your account. Now, also, APYs are variable and subject to change. So the APYs you see for these accounts definitely could change next week, next month, in a few days. As you saw in the video, several of these accounts have lowered their APYs in the past month or two. So definitely variable when it comes to APYs, and that's a standard thing for savings accounts. Another thing that all of these accounts have in common is that there's no monthly minimum balance required to avoid fees. Sometimes you'll have accounts that state, no monthly maintenance fees. However, there's a fine print attached to it, like you must have a minimum balance though to avoid it. With these accounts, no minimum balance to avoid fees. However, as you may have seen with some of these accounts, there is a minimum balance required to obtain the APY stated. Not for all of the accounts, however, for some of these accounts, as you saw and as I told you about throughout the video. Also, some of these accounts have no initial deposit requirement to open the account, However, some of them do have a certain amount that is required to open the account officially and fully. And I told you about those throughout the video. Also, another thing that all of these accounts have in common is that the bank or financial institution that's offering these accounts have a mobile app available on the Apple and Google Play app stores, which is important to me. I like to be able to access my account on the go on my smartphone throughout the day, throughout the week, the month, so forth. So those are some of the things that all of these accounts have in common. Definitely want to show you and tell you about that on the screen and not repeat it for each account throughout the presentation. And that is it, everyone, with my video on the top 10 savings accounts ranked by APY for November 2025. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Be sure to like it down below and subscribe to the channel. Much appreciated if you do either one of those, and even more appreciated if you do both of those. Hope you all enjoyed the video. Take care.